Rrashima, and welcome once again to the About Her show. It's good to have you back.
Thank you so much, Sangeeta. I'm so happy to be back.
Well, so am I to have you back. So, this is a podcast where one of the things that we do is, talk about the journeys of trailblazing women, their successes, failures, challenges, and all of that. Now, one
Yeah,
of the challenges which women face is of motherhood, parenting. How do we raise children in the right way? So that they turn out to be smart, confident, happy, resilient, all of those things. So it's a very, very tough challenge, according to me. I'm sure parenting was always a challenge for our parents, for their parents before that. But I feel that in today's day and age, with so much of information, awareness, opportunity around us, it's become more challenging. You don't know
yeah,
what is the right way, to navigate this. So
yeah.
today's conversation is going to center around this very, very critical challenge which women face. And of course, with reference to your book, Sleep Support and Sanity. So, yeah, so if you're all set, let's get on with it.
Absolutely.
All right. So, could you kind of, describe the personal changes that you experienced when you
Yeah,
transitioned from being a daughter to being a parent?
yeah, absolutely. I think, the first thing that happened, and this is a very funny incident, because I had all these unrealistic expectations when I was expecting my son.
Hmm.
And one of those expectations, I had these visions in my mind where, I bought this cot for him and I had this thought that, he would sleep through the night.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I have no idea why I even thought that way because a lot of people told me that sleep is one of the biggest challenges
Yeah.
that a new mother, a new parent has to actually deal with.
Hmm.
And that's the first thing that hit me. I think 3 nights without sleep, and I just didn't feel like myself.
Yeah.
I was like a zombie. And I remember thinking back, at that point, I remember thinking back to the time when my mom used to tell me how many months she had to deal with no sleep.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
think it just took becoming a mother for me to appreciate my own mom. Also, my dad. I think I saw them in a different way. I think we just become more considerate, more thoughtful about our own parents when we become parents. So that's the first change that happened. And then, of course, it was a whirlwind of changing, conflicting emotions and physical discomforts. You just don't feel like yourself. You go through, I think, which is why they say it's like a second birth.
Yeah.
And it's so true in so many ways because
Right.
in a lot of ways you are reborn as a new person
Yeah.
and you sometimes you look at yourself and you don't recognize yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
absolutely happens to all of us.
Yeah, it is, and it is actually an ongoing journey. The initial things, I mean, initial challenges that you face, I think, have to do with logistics, putting your child to sleep, or if they've fallen, you pick them up, or they're crying, these kind of things which are still in your control. But
Yeah,
as they grow up, the challenges, I mean, it's not the right word to say, but they get bigger and better because, there are so many things and there are so many unknowns out there, which you
yeah,
just have no clue
absolutely.
as to how to deal with. And I have
No,
grown up
because
children, and I can tell you it never gets easier.
no, babies and children don't come with a manual, which is what I said in
Absolutely
my
not.
book also.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have no idea what the different permutations, and every day is different. With a child, I think every day is different.
Yes, yes, yes. So then, how did your personal experiences, kind of influence you to put them down and come out with a book?
So, Sangeeta, I realized when I had my son, I realized that there were so many things, and I was having these conversations with myself.
Mm-hmm.
3 a.m. conversations when I seemed to be the only one who was awake in the whole world. It felt as if everybody else was getting a sound sleep and I was the only one awake. So
Mm-hmm.
I started maintaining a journal, and I used to do this when I was a teenager. Then, of course, you eventually stop doing those things. But I felt that it would be therapeutic for me to write down
Okay.
everything. And I also wanted to chronicle the journey because I remember this day when I turned to my mom for support.
Mm.
And I told her, Mom, could you just change his diaper? And she told me, I've forgotten how to do all this.
Hmm.
And I realized that, yes, it seems like such a life-changing event to have a child.
Hmm.
But how quickly we forget the practical things that we go through,
Hmm.
all those new skills that we learn, and then they become outdated. Like they didn't have diapers back when
Yeah.
my mom became a mother.
Hmm.
And so I decided that I should actually write it down, chronicle it, so that for myself, I wanted to do it for myself. And
Okay.
before I realized it, it became a book. I mean,
Hmm.
it started off as a diary, and
Yeah.
these were random diary entries, because as a new mother, you're not always on point when it comes to being regular about something. You
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
do it when you have the time and the energy. But it became a book. And I had actually written it down in a very, very candid fashion because it was my own conversations with myself.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I realized that a lot of that. So I shared it with a friend and who was going to have a child, and she told me this is a treasure trove of information for expecting mothers, new mothers,
Yeah.
seasoned mothers will also read it and look back
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
smile, at the memory of everything that happened.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's how it started. And then I spoke to my literary agent, Suhail Mathur, and he told me it's something that will always be relatable. This
Yeah.
topic is something which is
Correct.
timeless. So that's how the book actually happened.
So, was there any pivotal moment and a moment when you thought that, okay, I'm going to put this or change this into a book, or was it like it was a gradual process?
It was a gradual process for sure. Yeah. Because
Okay.
I didn't start writing those diary entries with an intention to actually write a book on this.
Hmm. Hmm.
At that point in time, I was much more interested in writing romance. I think you know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most of you know that. But yeah, I mean, it just seemed like the right thing to do because it came so naturally. It was something that I had put down from my own experiences and, of course, from interactions with other parents, interactions with my child's pediatrician at the most ungodly hours. I think he's been amazing,
Hmm.
So I figured that this is something that will be useful, and the purpose of it was to be able to help others.
Yes.
This was the kind of book I would have liked to read when my son was little.
I'm sure it'll be helpful because these are little things which you always can't ask people. Sometimes they happen at, like you said, at an ungodly hour, and you can't call up anyone, just to check. So yeah, I'm sure
Yeah,
it's a good reference point.
yeah,
Tell me, does your book also address the issue of work-life balance? Because as a mother, and if you are a working mother, so there is, of course,
yeah,
always there is a professional side to you, and there is a personal side to you. And when you become a mother, the personal side, it tends to take precedence because you know that you're responsible for this little thing that you brought into this world. So
yeah,
balancing becomes all that more challenging. So do you address this
yeah,
issue also in your book? Or
yeah.
if
In fact, so
yeah.
for those who've not seen it, this is the book.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's now there is a separate chapter that I've actually dedicated to exactly this.
Wow.
And yeah, the chapter is called Being a Working Mom and How to Achieve Work-Life Balance. So,
Wonderful.
I think it basically talks about, like you said, you suddenly, now you've been a working professional. I have been a
Hmm.
corporate professional for 20 years. And I remember when my son was born, I was, at the peak of my corporate career at that time. We usually are because that is the age when we're senior enough, to be given the kind of responsibility that we always wanted in our
Yeah,
careers. And considering the age, I think that is also the time when we plan our families.
correct.
So it's a very, very tough balance.
Hmm.
And I found it very difficult to accept. I had always been a perfectionist, a stickler for time, always wanted to be perfectly dressed for every meeting, always wanted to have my phone on silent mode when I was making a client presentation. And now suddenly all that changed. And
Hmm.
for me, it was difficult to accept myself
Hmm.
as anything less than what I had actually aspired to be in my corporate life. So I decided I needed to be kind to
Hmm.
myself. I was burning myself out trying to do both.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
basically, what the chapter deals with is that, whether you're a working mom or you're a stay at home mom, this is your decision and it's your choice. You need to own that choice. And
Absolutely.
I think women everywhere need to start being kind to themselves.
Hmm.
People need to understand that this is a life changing event. People in the office, people they work with, whether that is their colleagues or their bosses or their clients. People need to understand that if ever there is a life-changing event that happens in a woman's life, it is this. And I think we've seen a lot of change now. A lot of corporates are becoming a lot more, let's say, child-friendly, where they are providing a lot of the infrastructure also is being changed so that women who have children can be accommodated in that. I think that is a very positive thing that's happening. So in my book, in this particular chapter, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And basically own your choice.
Because the choice or the decision to have the child was yours. The child
Yeah.
never asked to be born. It was your choice
Yes.
to own it. And having done that, then do whatever is necessary to, parent your
Absolutely.
mother in the right way.
Yeah, and it's lovely to see, that companies are becoming more flexible.
Oh,
So
yes.
whether you are working part-time or you're working flexible hours or you're working from home, or
Hmm.
you're a mom who prefers to, sort of go to the office, but then you know what your, if you don't, like I stopped traveling for a bit, so I
Mhm.
decided that I couldn't manage both. And
Hmm.
that was something, it was a conscious decision, and I worked to make it work. So I think that is something we need to understand. We need to be kind to ourselves and to each other. So important to not judge.
Yeah, yeah. So, Rashima, based on what you've written in the book, which of course is based on your personal experience, could you share 3 tips which you feel are like top of your mind when it comes to parenting in the right way, to raise children in the right way? 3 tips.
Okay, the first one I think for sure is, and this I think I said in your last interview also, every day with a child is different. So take each day as it comes, and basically that means don't get overstressed. A
Mm,
happy, relaxed parent, and I'm saying parent, not mother, because I think those gender stereotypes have no longer been relevant for a long time.
mm,
So a happy, relaxed parent will raise a happy, relaxed child. I think
I agree.
somewhere I feel that mothers and children have a connection which really doesn't get severed after the umbilical cord. Also, I think it's important to understand that our stress passes on to our child.
Yeah.
So, happy, be relaxed, and try to stay as stress free as possible.
Yeah.
That's the first tip.
Okay.
The second is more to do with technology because this is something I think which is a very topical thing. We're all dealing with bringing up children in the tech savvy world, as we call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I have written in my book also that I am not the kind of parent who's averse to technology. And at the same time, pun intended, I don't leave my child to his own devices, when it comes to technology. So I guess I'm somewhere in between. I like a balanced approach to it. So that's tip number 2. You need to see where you are when it comes to technology, how much is too much, and what are the limits that you want to set. So this is something, the tip here is that you need to be very conscious about what your children are doing with technology.
Right.
And I know a lot of us are not as tech savvy as our kids.
Oh,
I
yes.
have learned a lot of tech from my son, which is not something I'm ashamed of. I think it's okay to learn from your children.
Yeah.
But we need to be aware.
Yes.
We need to be very aware of what's going on there. So that's the second tip. And the third, I think, is something I learned during the pandemic because that also was such a novel time for all of us. We'd never seen
Right.
anything like that before. So I think when it comes to mental health and children, this is a topic which deserves a lot of attention. So when a new mother,
Mm,
when a mom is born, because I feel that with the child, a mom is also born. I
yeah.
think the mental health of the mother is very important. And as the child grows, the mental health of the child is something also which we need to be aware of. So it's very easy for children these days to succumb to peer pressure or to not be able to express themselves. Very often we see children don't really tell anyone how they're feeling. And then we've read, of course, all of us have read about cases or incidents where things have gone irrevocably wrong there. So those are things we need to take extremely seriously when it comes to mental health. There just isn't enough conversation happening there. So,
Great. I'm sure this will really help because these are certain things that we really need to, and this is how parenting has changed,
yeah,
from what it
yeah,
was when we were children to now. So these are some of the
yeah,
changes. Okay.
yeah.
But, yes, changes have taken place in, many, many ways, and families are no longer the way they used to be. But do you think that traditional gender roles still have a role to play when it comes to parenting? And if so, then what should be done to support modern families?
I seriously feel, and I have personally witnessed this, and particularly after the pandemic, I've seen, and I'll give you a little example. So, we see so many fathers lined up at dispersal time now. When I go to pick up my son, I see, it's an equal balance between moms and dads. You'll see as many dads there at the in the dispersal line as you see moms. So, that is just a little example I'm sharing. But I feel that when it comes to gender defined roles, it's not the way it was. It's very heartening to see fathers coming forward to share equal caregiving responsibilities, and enjoying it. And I think it's something that comes as naturally to a father as it does to a mother. And if you don't mind, I'm going to just read out like a little excerpt from this. There is a chapter in the book called Birthing a Father.
Okay.
And yeah, the subtitle is Are Absentee Fathers a Thing of the Past? So, this is exactly what you're talking about, right? Here, I'm going to just read out a bit.
Mm.
They say fatherhood can teach a man to be sensitive, responsible, and patient. It
Mhm.
can evoke a gentleness that even he did not know he was capable of. Despite the fact that it is the woman's body that goes through the most palpable transformation after childbirth, there is more and more evidence to suggest that the man's body goes through some remarkable changes too, including hormonal ones.
Okay.
Yes, you have heard me right.
Yes.
Researchers say that fatherhood can actually result in a drop in testosterone and a spike in oxytocin, which is the love hormone.
Mm.
There are studies which have even proved that a father's brain looks very similar to a mother's brain in terms of emotional and cognitive engagement after the child is born. It
Okay.
seems like a pity, then, doesn't it, that something that comes as instinctively to men as it does to women should have traditionally been restricted by society because of gender defined roles. So, thankfully, that is changing. And I see that, of course, I think urban India is a little different. We have to also consider and take into account that in the smaller towns, it may not be as prevalent as it is, in the bigger cities now. It takes a village to bring a child up, but I feel that, as two equal partners,
Hmm.
both the parents have to come forward and share equal caregiving responsibilities here. So, yeah.
That's true, actually, which brings me to the next question. How do you think a couple can work this out? So we understand, fathers understand, mothers understand that parenting responsibilities need to be equally shared. But then, of course, we are also coming with the baggage of the stereotypes, the gender roles, which are somewhere embedded in the society, expectations, and somewhere in our minds also. So, how can a couple work towards ensuring that these responsibilities are equally divided?
Well, I think you just answered that, because the first thing we need to do is to get those stereotypes out of our mind. If we are able to, so to smash those stereotypes, first we have to stop thinking in that sense. We have to understand that the only thing that the father can't do is to breastfeed the child. That is, I think, and of course, not he can't give birth to the child either. But those are the only two things. That everything else, I think, a man can do equally well, and if not more, than a woman. So I think. Smashing the stereotype will only happen when we stop giving it importance. It's something that comes naturally to men. uh, Fathers love their children very much like mothers do. Why would they not take care of the child with the same kind of love and gentleness that a woman will? So I think it's not even a topic that deserves any discussion anymore. I think thankfully all that has changed. Whether it is taking the child to a birthday party, something as small as that, or attending a PTA meeting, or whether it is being aware of the child's food allergies, what foods your child is allergic to, what books he likes to read, or whether it is about spending quality time, which will then later go on to form wonderful memories for both the father as well as the child. I think men are doing it all, and it's commendable to see how beautifully they have stepped into this role.
So, somewhere I think the parenting skills of their parents need to be applauded for that. Maybe,
I think so.
Yeah, somewhere.
That and somewhere that, and I also but then of course that has also changed over the years. I mean, change is the only constant. So here, it is not as traditional as it used to be. I think a lot of times exposure and being able to talk to other parents who are in similar situations, building a support system, because very often, if a parent is traveling, and then the other one is there at home all the time. It is very important to build a support system. That could be a support system of other parents. It could be a support system which consists of people who you trust or whose parenting skills you have confidence in and who you can turn to for help. So all that comes together to create a process which works. And, I think to each his own. So whatever works for one couple may not necessarily work for the other. But the crux here is, so the central focal point that I'm trying to make is that gender stereotypes shouldn't exist anymore. And it is very heartening to see that more and more fathers are coming forward to share in this.
And hopefully, with time, these changes will percolate to the tier two, tier three cities as well, as more and more fathers, so to say, they kind of jump onto this bandwagon. It'll create
Yeah,
more awareness and will inspire and motivate other fathers to do the same. Okay.
absolutely.
But fathers are changing, families are changing. But do you think that society still has greater expectations from women when it comes to spending time with the child? I mean, will a woman still be questioned about her career choices, when it comes to comparing her professional and personal lives? Do you think it is still happening? Or you think it's kind of on the wane, on the decrease?
It's definitely on the wane. I think to a great extent, as women, we also, there's this entire expectation, you've heard this, right? That women can multitask very well. And the whole concept of a superwoman or a super mom. I've written about this in my book too. And, I've spoken about how, and it's funny, when you say this whole myth around a super mom. Is it like the myth of Santa Claus or the myth of the tooth fairy? Because when you think about it, Santa Claus only has to perform his crazy duties once a year, but
Yeah.
Supermom has to perform 24/7. So obviously, this is a myth. It doesn't exist.
Mhm.
Nobody can have it all. Nobody can do it all.
Yeah.
This popular movie, I wonder how she does it. I don't know how she does it.
Mhm.
It's there in the title. How does she do it? Nobody can.
Nobody
So I think it's more to do with the guilt that we feel ourselves. I feel it. I'm
can.
admitting this. I feel guilty all the time.
Mm.
And that has so much to do with the amount of time that and there are times when my son will tell me to go get a life. Even then I feel guilty, So he clearly doesn't want me there. But I'm constantly, thinking, okay, maybe I should go and I should read with him, or I should take him out, or I should spend more time with him right now. And it's a constant battle.
Hmm.
Uh, Speaking for myself, I think I'm lucky that way because nobody in my family ever came forward and told me, you're not doing enough, or your work is interfering with your parenting here. My husband was always supportive. I think it had so much more to do with my own inner conflict, you
Hmm.
know.
Which I
Yeah,
think, yes, as women, we do face. We kind of take ourselves on a guilt trip that I should have done this and I could have done this. Whereas, like you said, it's all in our heads. The child
it is.
probably doesn't need you. The world does not even think about it. It's we who, put ourselves in that position.
Because at the end of the day, I know most moms do their best. I'm not going to say all because
Yeah,
I
exceptions.
don't like to use that word. Exceptions are there. But I know that most mothers do their best.
Yeah.
So, we've already given it everything we can.
Hmm.
Then to go and feel guilty about what you couldn't do, because at the end of the day, you're human,
Yes,
you know.
absolutely.
And there's another little anecdote I've shared in this book, which is really interesting. When you're on an airline, when you're on an aircraft, on a flight, what does the flight attendant tell you? She says, first secure your own oxygen mask and then assist
Yes,
whoever needs assistance. So if you can't breathe yourself, or if you're not giving yourself time, how do you expect to do the same for your child?
absolutely. Absolutely. This is
You're a
something.
person too. Yeah.
Yes. This it should be something like a screensaver, because you need to kind of constantly keep this in mind.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me, what role does media play in shaping these perspectives about the perfect mom and that, maa sab kuch hai and all of that? We've grown up seeing that. But of course, we're also seeing a change in that. So what are your views on this? To what extent can media play a role in shaping, perceptions of motherhood and parenting?
As far as advertising is concerned, I think it is changing, and this is not relevant to parenting per se, but it's more relevant to gender specific roles. We saw the Cadbury's ad, all of us have seen it, and how they interchanged the roles there, where you have a woman's sports team playing and the man is cheering her on. So I think advertising is definitely trying to move with the times.
Hmm,
Social media, however, I think puts a tremendous amount of pressure. So, because everybody wants to share the best moments.
hmm,
Uh, the, and again, I've written about this in the book in detail, that I've given a sort of, I've made people visualize how it happens. So you have a mom and you have these three children.
hmm,
A friend of mine, she shared this picture on Facebook, and I've written about this incident. So she's a mother of three. She's a working mom and she's maintained herself well. Now you can imagine how picture perfect it looks, right? When she shares a photograph on Facebook. Three kids, beautifully dressed. She's standing there, designer sunglasses, all well made up. How do you know what happened after the picture was clicked? For all
of
you know, all the three
of
kids had
course.
meltdowns and she screamed like a banshee at them.
Yeah,
It's so possible. Yeah. But
definitely.
social media will always paint this perfect picture. And you do feel somewhere, that I think that feeling of competitiveness seeps in, and then we start comparing our lives. And this is not just about parenting. I think it's something that happens to us all the time. So
And
media
it is
plays a
about
huge
us.
role.
And it is about
Yeah.
us at the end of the day, yes. How much we get taken in by what is being shown over there and how much we kind of try to, look beneath. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me, mothers, yes, of course, fathers have started playing a critical role in the raising of children and parenting and all of that. But I still feel that mothers do have somewhere, and still, as a society has not changed completely, they still have a greater role to play. So tell me, when it comes to advocating gender equality, what is the role of women when it comes to their own families and the larger society?
Sangeeta, I think when you say that, look at it this way. Yes, of course, society, I think, expects so much more from mothers. And I'll say it like this, that when you see a father who's very involved, everybody will notice and appreciate it. Yeah.
Hmm,
But when it comes to the mother fulfilling her duties, I think it's just something that is her duty. So she's supposed to do it. Nobody will really talk about it.
hmm, hmm,
No, everyone will say, oh, he's a wonderful father if he's, taken his child out for a play date or a birthday party. But for the mom, it's just something that is done. So nobody will talk about it. No one will say that, oh, she's a fantastic mother. She's brought her child out for a birthday party. So I think that is where the difference lies. It's the expectation from the mom. So when it comes to her own families, I think again, it's about women supporting women, whether it is her mom or it is the mom-in-law at home,
hmm,
or, when they set those examples and everyone comes together to embrace this new family structure, I
hmm,
think that is what will really work. And from family, it'll then slowly trickle down into society, because you see one family, you see more families, you see them across small towns, and then you'll see them in the villages. And
hmm,
that, I think, is when we will truly be able to say that we are a gender, we're free of that gender bias.
hmm, hmm.
So that is what we need to do. I think women need to support women. It has to start there.
Yes, definitely. That I agree. And I think not only for parenting and motherhood, but for every aspect of a woman's life, we have to get together and do it. All right.
Yeah.
So somebody who reads your book, so what will be their takeaway when it comes to the future of parenting and motherhood?
There's so much in there, I think. So I got a review recently, I think was posted day before yesterday on Amazon, and someone called it a treasure trove of information and personal anecdotes. I
Hmm,
think there are three things that the book will do, and it will do these three things for all parents, not just for moms, but for fathers too. First of all, it'll ease out this transitionary phase, that we're all going through. And I feel every phase of parenting is a new stage. It's a transition. So whether you're a new mom or you're somebody who's bringing up a teenager, I have a 13-year-old now. I feel I'm learning all the time. I'm constantly learning. Those questions haven't abated at all. They're still there. So I feel the book will answer a lot of questions. It will help you. The biggest takeaway is that it will help you to be kind to yourself. It will help you to accept that this is not an easy thing. It is not something that And so we need to stop feeling bad. We need to stop feeling guilty. We need to stop berating ourselves as parents. We're trying to do our best. And yes, it will also make us aware of what modern age parenting is all about. Because when we talk to our parents or our grandparents, their challenges were a little different.
Yes,
Today, everything has changed. We're
it
bringing
has.
children up in a very different world. So the book has, spoken about all that. The book talks about all that and more. So I think the biggest takeaway is that it'll help you to deal with the challenges of modern day parenting.
So eventually, if I say that the way we raise our children, the way we go on with the process of parenting, that will also, in a larger sense, address the issue of gender dynamics. And there is hope for, if not perfect equality, but a lot of some semblance of gender equality when we move on and we go towards the future, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because we are dealing with it right, at the very beginning when the child is young. So when parents
Yeah,
are dividing responsibilities or work between them, the child is imbibing that, the child is seeing that this is how things have to be, this is the deal. All right.
yeah. In fact, there is this little thing I've written here also, and it's there in the chapter I was talking about how to birth, birthing a father.
Yeah.
Because since we're talking gender, let me just give me a moment. Yeah, here we are. So I'm talking about a friend actually and we see this, right? That sometimes you have a promotion at work or you have a transfer, and parents then decide to live separately for the sake of the children's education or whatever. So a friend recently told me something rather interesting. We were catching up after a long time, and when I asked about her family, she spoke about her husband refusing an important promotion so he could be in the same city as her and their son. The promotion would have meant a three times hike in salary, but it would have also required him to relocate to a different city while we stayed on in Gurgaon because of my job and our son's school, she told me. Well, that just wasn't acceptable to any of us. My husband wanted to be a part of our son's life. His role in bringing up our son has been invaluable. Other than his practical contributions, our child has learned values, real solid values from his father. Just being around him, watching him, observing him, has taught our son things that will help him take good decisions, make correct choices, and differentiate between right and wrong. He taught him to care for the environment. He taught him the importance of staying healthy and expressing his emotions. He taught him to respect women. The significance of this one cannot be stressed enough. Whether you have a son or a daughter, how a father behaves around women can have a life changing impact on your child.
Absolutely, absolutely. I completely agree. Like I always say, children don't only learn what you teach them, but they also pick up, they also imbibe what they observe, and they are very, very keen observers. That's something we always have to keep in mind.
Yeah,
Okay. So, Rashima, that's it as far as the questions are concerned. But then we do have the rapid fire, which will touch upon you as an author and you as a parent. So,
all
starting with
right.
an easier one. So, the first question: what is your favorite writing spot?
Right here where I'm sitting, this is my desk,
Okay.
and this is a room that is, it used to be a bedroom, but now it is a study, and I have my library of books in front of me to inspire me. So it's a library come den, come study. Yeah.
All right. The second one. So, what was the most important thing that you discovered about yourself when you became a parent?
That I have incredible patience, you know,
All right. Okay.
or at least I have incredible reserves of patience.
Yes, that is true. That is something, yes, we need so much of. So,
And
while
that even though you
you're
can't see them, I have 10 hands like Durga Mata because I can multitask so many things together.
yes, we all just learn to do it. Okay. So, while you're writing, any favorite writing snack or beverage?
Coffee, black coffee, and sometimes I like to munch on chocolates for energy.
All right. Okay. So, what was at one time when your son completely outsmarted you?
Oh, that was in the pandemic. I
Okay.
was technologically nowhere near where he was. So I think he managed to outsmart me quite a few times because his school was using this thing called Microsoft Teams
Yeah, yeah.
to do their online classes, and it took me a while to understand the nitty gritties of that
Okay.
platform. So it was only when his teacher told me that he's been changing his screen and playing video games on the side.
Okay.
So, and he's relatively that way, he picks up things fast. So, academically he's been good.
Mm.
So when I used to question him, ask him questions about what they did in class, he managed to pick up stuff. But I mean, this is something I didn't figure, that he was actually spending a lot of time changing the screen and playing video games.
All right. Okay. So the final question, what is your favorite genre when it comes to reading? What kind of books do you like the most?
These days, historicals. I'm obsessed, totally obsessed. And yeah, I do like nonfiction very much now. I used to be more of a fiction reader. Now I do read a lot of nonfiction. So books that chronicle, an author's journey or somebody else's journey with respect to something which is relevant or pertinent, whether it is even something like parenting, or what you talk about, gender differences, those kind of things. I think I have always found them very, very fascinating. So yeah, history and nonfiction. That's what I'm reading these days. And thanks to Sohail, I have also been able to write nonfiction very well. So I have to thank him because, in fact, I owe all my literary success to Sohail of the Book Bakers. I think he has made me really realize my true potential as a writer.
That's
So I
wonderful.
think that is something, yeah. I think I truly have understood what I can do because he brought these stories to me. He brought interesting concepts to me, and he's guided me every step of the way. So
Wonderful, wonderful. So thank you, Rashima. It was indeed wonderful
thank
to
you.
have you back on the show and, of course, discuss something which, like I said, is so, so relevant for women, for parents, because the world is changing and we need to keep pace with it. So it was so good to know that you've written a book, first of all, and then you have such clear, candid views about the roles of men and women, how they are changing and how they should change. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Sangeeta, it's a pleasure every time. Last time it was a pleasure, and I really love your show. I was watching a number of episodes, a few days back, and I think it's so inspiring what you're doing. And it is something which is very pertinent. Like I said, we just don't have enough conversations about this. So I'm so happy you're doing this, and it's always a pleasure. And I want to thank Suhail also, for pitching the book, for guiding me through the process of bringing the book out. I want to thank my publishers, Ajay Mago, and of course the editor-in-chief, Shantanu Ray Chaudhary, and my editor, Jyotsna. So Suhail Mathur, Ajay Mago, Shantanu Ray Chaudhary, and Jyotsna Mehta are the four people without who this book wouldn't have happened. So a huge thank you to them. And I hope that the readers love it. They love reading it as much as I enjoyed writing it.
All right.